John Gilroy here. Today's guest has customers who include 98% of the Fortune 100. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Jeff Waters, Senior Vice President, Federal Sales at a company called Riverbed Technology. Now, most of our listeners have heard about Riverbed. They know that, but they don't know about this really impressive word I'm going to toss out here. It's called telemetry. So, Jeff, what the heck is telemetry? Something to impress your neighbors with or something?
Well, hi, John. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'd love to talk about telemetry for the next 25 to 30 minutes, but
Oh, 2 minutes, 2 minutes tops.
maybe let's set a little context and then I'll be sure to jump into telemetry. But so, our customers really are coming to us every day with three problems. How to improve their employees' digital experience, how to simplify their management environment, and how to implement AI that works. So back to telemetry and how to solve those three problems. So I'm a Marine, as you know, John, so I like simple. Telemetry to me is just, data. So how do we capture data across that entire IT environment from the user through the application, through the infrastructure, through the network? All that data is telemetry.
That's good to know. So telemetry really is just collecting remote signals. These can be signals from railroad tracks. These can be signals from satellites. These can be signals from individual users at a federal website and understanding their experience. Is that right?
We're working on that sensor for the railroad tracks, but it's a long way off. Now we're talking about IT environment, the network devices, that infrastructure, and again the user and application data. So IT specific telemetry or data.
So when you collect this data, once upon a time, it's pretty simple. Networks were limited to inside buildings and you knew exactly what was going on. But today we have networks all over the place, distributed networks. We have hybrid cloud, we have remote users. And so how can you gain all that information in this confusing networking world we live in today?
Yeah, you nailed it. When you and I look to be about the same age, it used to be pretty simple in these environments. It's no longer simple. It gets more and more complex every day, right? We used to go into the office, turn on our laptop, do some email, make some phone calls. Now, if people are in the office, they're dealing with an explosion of applications. They're doing things on their mobile devices, but as you know, they're really not limited to that office. They're working from home. They're working from coffee shops. I actually read something that says people are actually remote working from Disney World. Now, I don't know how that works, but you can imagine the complexity if you're an IT, management trying to, one, deliver, great user experience, and two, deliver it in that very complex environment, which again, as I said at the beginning, that's one of the three main problems people come to us with is how to simplify their management environment in that complexity.
Okay, we can assign to a smart guy like you. Okay, figure this out, and you're going to get your little, your little clipboard and spend 40 hours a day for the next year trying to figure it out. Or you can automate it, or even use these fancy pants tools, including artificial intelligence. Now, when I was doing research on Riverbed, I stumbled on this phrase, AI ops. Now, I know what DevOps are, I know what DevSecOps are, but I don't know about AI ops. So, what's that got to do with Riverbed? AI ops.
Again, AI, artificial intelligence operations is that IT environment operations that we've been talking about. So, Riverbed solves those three problems I mentioned at the beginning with a platform approach. And in its simplest form, it optimizes the collection of that data or telemetry we were talking about. So that end user application infrastructure network data. It then applies that data to our AI engine. It correlates that, finds root cause analysis, and the really secret sauce is it then automates the remediations of what it finds. We've got one customer that's doing 2,000 automations per month, with our
Wow.
solution. And then finally, as you would expect, we can report on what's going on, in your environment with our solutions, or it's very open. If you've got third-party tools, ServiceNow is a specific example that we integrate with. So no need to, rip and replace or to be in vendor lock-in. We have a very open platform.
Let's go from the DoD to Jeff's Donuts. Okay, so Jeff's Donuts is out there. It's got a website. Now, the way I would improve the website for user experience, I would make sure it's real fast, loads within 3 seconds. I would make sure that it looks good on my phone. And I would make sure that the heat map was there when I could understand where people are clicking, where they're not clicking. But I think this is real deceptive. I mean, when you get with larger organizations, you know, uh, you know, progressive insurance, all of a sudden, then that's almost a given. All those simple, basic, web interface things, but accessing the information quickly, all of a sudden, that becomes part of the user experiences. How can you access information quickly and securely, and not sit there drumming your fingers and cursing at Jeff? Wow, what's going on here?
Absolutely. I mean, you hit on the crux of the problem, and we talked a little bit about complexity. Again, most organizations, their IT groups have grown around the logical, kind of functional area. So, I'm a network person, and I work in the network group, or I'm an infrastructure person and I work in that group, or I develop and run applications, or, I'm in that endpoint and, user group. The problem with that is they've all got their own tools. None of those tools necessarily talk to each other. So, we have, as an example, the problem, you kind of illustrated there. Everyone, when we can't solve that problem for the user, everybody kind of get smart people in a room, you try to figure out what's going on. We all kind of default to our function, and I call it time to innocence, where the network guy saying it's not the network, the infrastructure person saying it's not the infrastructure, the application people are saying there's nothing wrong with the application.
Right. Yes.
Meanwhile, the user still can't, perform their critical mission. And again, that's the problems that are being brought to us, and that's where that, full fidelity data with AI across that spectrum, takes away that, kind of time to innocence and focuses on solving the problem and figuring out exactly where it is. Unfortunately, the way organizations, go about this is antiquated, right? It's the user. The user is the sensor. The user is the canary in the coal mine that says we've got a problem. That's very reactive. We're seeing, we have an organization we work with that was getting 2,000 tickets an hour. You can't solve that with resources. There's not enough resources in the world that go through 2,000 tickets in an hour. So, with this AI ops, this AI automation that we talked about, we can significantly reduce that. That specific customer, 86% of those alerts, we were able to deal with automation, and 14% of those then were, focused on by, the smart people to get, into that improving user experience.
Well, Jeff, you look like a football player. I follow football, and there's all kinds of interesting verbs they use in terminology with these coaches. and they talk about playbooks, and they talk about installing a playbook. Yeah, and we're going to install the playbook here in August at 100 degrees down in Texas. Oh, really? I don't know what you're going to install there. But I think in your world, they use something called a run book. And what can happen is if, let's say, Riverbed detects a problem, then I guess there's what you would call a run book to remediate the problem. Is that what a run book is in your world?
Exactly right. Again, think about, the most common problems that might arise in a network. We can automate that remediation. We have 170 remediations out of the box. And again, that's an example of the 20,000 automations that one of our customers is doing now. So again, those run books are nothing. Well, I shouldn't say nothing because it's pretty slick and it's pretty powerful. That again, I can take that data, I can analyze it, correlate it, come up with a root cause, and then automate the remediations, based on that. And they're also custom. So if a customer wants to, develop their own run books, we certainly give them that capability. But we also have 170 and more coming every day that are right out of the
Wow.
box.
Wow, wow, wow. If you're listening to this and there's snow on the ground, or maybe you're on vacation and you want to get more information, you can go to Riverbed. They have a blog there, and they got a great. I just pulled this one up. It's just great. Exactly what we're talking about. It's called Riverbed Unwraps New AI-Powered Platform Expands Observability and Intelligence Solutions. Bang! End of interview. You can just read that word for word, and it tells exactly what we're doing. But we're trying to make this more palatable. Speaking of pallets, let's go back to old Jeff's Donut. So when Jeff's Donuts has to buy something, I guess they call up a provisioner and they get their flour or whatever they buy. It's pretty easy. In the federal government and big companies, not as easy as calling up a provisioner for a flour, a couple 50-pound bags of flour. And so the acquisition for this is very difficult. And I think you've coined a phrase that can help our listeners understand how they can use Riverbed to achieve this elusive goal of UX improvement. So let's hear it, Jeff. I want to hear this phrase. I love it.
Yes, so as we were saying, now it's on record. Nothing on the internet ever dies. So yeah, the phrase I've coined is precision guided IT spending. And again, I came up with that after talking to customers that didn't have our solutions, and then customers that came back to me after they had our solutions deployed. And so in the first case, we see customers spending tens of millions of dollars on projects, whether that's a network upgrade, whether that's, migrating applications to the cloud because they think, things will be better in the cloud. So, and what they found, unfortunately, was, again, the user experience didn't improve at all. In some cases, it got worse.
Yeah.
So again, tens of millions of dollars spent on these projects that, again, the whole point of them was, improve that user experience, improve that individual's productivity, their ability to accomplish the mission. Now compare that to, a customer that's deployed the Riverbed platform, that has that data across the wide IT environment. They're coming back and saying, look, that functional area that we talked about, that network person or that application person came to me and said, we need to spend $10 million here.
Whoa.
And with the data that we provide, that person was able to say, no, you don't need to spend $10 million there. Where you need to spend a fraction of that, is in this location. And again, solve the problem, improve user experience, and spend a fraction of the money, thus the phrase precision guided IT spending.
Yeah, and you said the word location. That reflect back to the start of this interview with telemetry and finding out. And I think everyone knows that Riverbed has a pretty solid reputation for really understanding the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the network. You can find out what areas need to be remediated and what are fine and what need. But the problem I think people have is that, okay, here it is, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm happy. Jeff's happy. All the customers are happy. 10:01, we're flooded with new stuff. So how do you handle that? How do you handle this? Oh, by the way, there's 50 petabytes that just came in. Now what? I mean, how do you scale with that knowledge? I mean, how does that work?
Well, the good news is, it's as if everything we've done over the past, 2 decades is kind of leading to where we are now. Again, we've always been, in the network. We've always been collecting this data. We built a data store for those people out there that have tried to do that. They understand how hard that is to do. We've been able to solve that problem. So that petabytes of data that you mentioned, again, not a challenge for us. And again, to do AI the right way, you need, complete and accurate data. If you have that, you're a long way into being able to implement, AI that works. The great news is, we've been out there for a long time in the network, in the infrastructure, in the application, with the user data. So we have that complete full stack of data that we can use to, again, implement AI that works. And you
Yeah,
mentioned
and
the launch, we just announced basically more collection mechanisms. We support mobile devices now, both, uh, iOS and Android devices. So all those things that I've talked about with data, as you know, mobile devices, a lot of us are doing our day-to-day job just on that mobile device or that tactical endpoint. We can collect that data and do all the things that we've talked about with that data as well.
yeah, the blog is pretty well written. It talks about, new ways to collect data. Look at your blind spots, talks about managing agents. And I didn't want to use that word because it's going to get people mad. And, taking AI and maybe move it to step up from there. And there's some pre-built integrations. You mentioned it earlier with ServiceNow, but it's not, I mean, the list of integrations you have on your website, it's like you gotta scroll through 'em. I mean, so you integrate with a wide variety of applications. So if you have a service that can make true observability what a network is, then you can say, oh, this isn't a plugin. You don't need the ServiceNow plugin. You may need an XYZ plugin or this other plugin. And that's I guess, the benefit of being knocked around for 20 years and you've seen what works and what doesn't. And you may have to keep this special part in the shelf just for this one special agency.
It's, again, another, term I use a lot or phrase I use a lot is, management of complex change. Again, organizations, IT organizations, the best part and the worst part about it is, things are constantly changing. So, if we think about, the current programs, projects, initiatives, things like zero trust. Zero trust introduces blind spots. You mentioned
Ah,
the launch. We've now have capabilities to address those blind spots as organizations implement their zero trust architectures. Software defined wide area networks. Again, a new program project initiative that most organizations are doing. There's blind spots that are introduced there. With the launch, we announced new capabilities to address those blind spots.
right. It's the law of unintended consequences. I mean, everyone likes to use this phrase is that there's no solutions, only trade-offs. So we go to ZTA. Okay. Oh, by the way, what about that shadow IT you didn't know was going on in the background? Well, why didn't you know, why didn't you know, Jeff? Well, well, we thought we knew what was going on there. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, while Riverbed's not a kind of a pure play cybersecurity company, all this data and telemetry that we've talked about, can really help the security side. And again, the kind of organizational stovepipes that we talked about, that the security operations guys need network operations data and vice versa. So again, this data really can implement across a wide variety of functional areas.
I'm gonna call up the trade office here, and I'll get you a patent on that phrase, precision guided IT spend. I'm also going to patent my phrase, which is speed is innovation. What? Well, maybe I stole that from someone. I was at an event and I think there'd be a federal leader up there. He said, there's this innovation there and artificial and this and new ways. And by the way, speed in of itself is innovation. And so just the fact that Riverbed can accelerate that just, you don't have to talk about AI, you don't have to talk about agent management, but that in itself is innovation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, acceleration, that's a great word. Obviously, we love that word because Riverbed was born as an acceleration company. So we have another portfolio that really focuses on, accelerating applications, the network, everything around that, you know, the Navy, from a ship perspective, it's pretty hard to lay fiber, to a ship. So,
That'd be hard.
those use cases of, intermittent, low bandwidth satellite, we have so much to say there and to help our customers. And the other thing we're finding, I think you kind of hit on this was, around things that you really can't change in widgets that, are for one customer. We've kind of been saying, what's old is new again. And, there's applications that organizations are finding they really can't do anything about. They have to leave them as they are. They can't modernize them. So how can they accelerate those applications and optimize the network for those applications? So, we're seeing, kind of that what's old is new again on the acceleration side.
Yes, it's important to know that there's agencies that have applications that can't go to the cloud and are Edgar and everything else. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation with the Marine. I was thinking about you being a Marine and swim out there to this ship with this cable. Yes, sir. I'm not I can't. I got this 2-mile cable.
The Marines, we'd probably do that.
Yeah, sure. And then get halfway and, I can't swim. Who cares? Do something like that. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Jeff Waters, Senior Vice President, Federal Sales at Riverbed Technology.